there's a sensibility there that I try to get people to cultivate, of knowing when you should select something to be like, oh, I'm ready to learn what this word is right now. So, in general, I'm trying to cultivate people to be more active and more autonomous in their learning, because we've cultivated this very, very passive culture of learning where it's like, teach me, tell me what I need to know. But that's not how it works. You got to grab it. You got to seize it.
Hey there, do you want to speak English like a native? Most learners inevitably answer yes to this. Now, it's not necessary that you speak like a native. What is really important is that you speak clearly and people understand you. But whether you want to speak like a native or just for it to be easy for anyone to understand you, today's video will help you to reach your goal fast and for free. My guest today is Edauza Ness, creator of the Mimic Method, a unique and revolutionary technique for learning languages. Edauza, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, this may sound too good to be true, but if you watch until the end, you will learn that this technique does make it possible for anyone to speak English or another language clearly and accurately. So let's get started. And for you newcomers, every week we help you to communicate clearly in English by understanding fast speech, being understood by anyone, and connecting to the world. Like David, who was able to pass his oral exam in English thanks to our lessons. We want to help you to reach your English learning goals too, but we can only do it if you hit that subscribe button and the bell down below so that you don't miss any of our new lessons. Aw, yeah. For you, if you wanted to, I don't know, if you got an acting gig and you had to play a British person, could you instantly, you think, pick up a British accent just by, listening to someone speaking British English? Or is it something you need to study a bit to actually pick up?
I would need to practice it. I mean, that's what I do with these other things. I don't instantly pick up. I didn't instantly pick up European Portuguese. In fact, for a while, I was just speaking Brazilian Portuguese while I was here. And then at one point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be here, so let me just make a European Portuguese course. And then I just spent a weekend listening to a bunch of audio and then doing all the stuff I do in my process. And then once I brought my conscious attention to what was going on there, then it's not too difficult for me to start making the switch. But before I do that, it'll always be kind of that. So if I did it for British English, which I never did, I'd imagine it would be the same thing where I would just take whichever accent I'm trying to imitate, and then I would just decode it. My whole thing's based on movement. I say language is movement first and foremost. So the question I'm really asking is, how is this British guy here moving his mouth differently when he's saying the sentence? And once I can trace the exact path of his tongue and lips and everything else, then I just have to copy it. And that's not hard. I just didn't know what it was until I looked at it closely.
There's a ton more for you to learn with Edauza and other incredible teachers and experts. You can get the full interviews from Beyond Borders anywhere you listen to podcasts. However, I would recommend that you listen on the Real Life English app. Why? Because it is the only place where you can get a transcript for the full episode and learn all the most important vocabulary and more. Plus, many learners like you tell me that they are frustrated that they don't have anyone to practice what they are learning with. Well, on the Real Life app, you can have conversations in English with people from all around the world at the touch of a button and discover new cultures. So if you are ready to step outside of the classroom and live your English, then download the app now by searching for Real Life English in the Apple app or Google Play Store. Or simply click the link up here or down in the description below.
You may have heard there's a man in a park kind of on the ground in the middle of the night searching under a street lamp, searching for something, and the cop comes, hey, what are you doing? And he said, hey, I lost my keys. The drunk guy said, I lost my keys. So the cop gets on the ground too, and they're searching around for the keys, and they can't find it under the street lamp. And then the cop says, are you sure you dropped your keys here? He's like, no, I dropped them over there in the parking lot. And he's like, well, why are you searching over here then? He said, because this is where the light is, right? So to draw the analogy here, Why do people study language through reading and writing? Because that's where the light is. That's where they feel comfortable. That's where you can very precisely see the letters and have that kind of measure of certainty. But what you and I are doing right now, we're not looking at any letters, right? What you and I are doing is removing our mouths, generating sound effects with it, perceiving those sound effects with our ears, and then going back and forth in rapid time. There's no visual processing really going on of letters, though I am looking at your face in this case, which is also very important, and we teach that as well. So the point is that you just have to look at what conversation is. It so happens to be that, we've been communicating for God knows how long in oral communication. And then, only 10,000 years ago or something like that, someone came up with the first writing system. And only like in the past 100 or so years did a large population of people become literate in the first place. Most people were illiterate all the time for all human history. So we have a brand new technology that's been spent all over. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. We use literacy. It's very powerful. It really did a lot of things for us. But what people really care about, the reason why people pay money to learn languages, 99% of the time is not because they want to, read Baudelaire in French. And, so it's because they want to have a conversation, like which we're doing right now. So people just confound those two things. Reading and writing is just a different activity. It's like, imagine say, hey, I want to learn French. Cool. And then you start, playing golf. And like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm learning French. Like, no, you're not. You're playing golf. It's a different thing, So obviously there's a connecting point where reading and writing is based on conversation and speaking, but it's not the same thing. So if you learn this one, you're learning something else, but even worse, because they mix, you might actually be sabotaging. My expertise is in pronunciation and accent correction. So when I hear people mispronouncing things in another language, I'd say about half the time, their mispronunciation is purely due to the fact that they're seeing the word in their head. And if they weren't seeing the word in their head, they would have naturally pronounced it correctly. So it's an interference. Imagine like a Google spreadsheet, and you have these columns, characters, actions, settings, descriptors, and connectors. And basically the idea is that the way the mind processes reality is through narrative. So if I have my characters, these are the elements of a narrative. So I have my characters. So I have written in English the words that I know. So if I'm learning a brand new language, I'll do this. And I'm like, okay, I know the word I, you, mailman, dog, things that are relevant to me or whatever. And then actions is like, okay, what's run, talk, speak, eat, settings or places, park, house, room, time, yesterday, tomorrow. And if I see all those there, and then I would start kind of constructing sentences and telling stories using those elements. So usually people collect and categorize their vocabulary according to like a same class. Like these are a bunch of verbs and these are a bunch of nouns, or just all in like one single list. I'll take a context that's relevant to me, like going to the store, and then say, okay, in this context, what are the character words that are relevant? Shopkeeper, the customer. What are the actions relevant? Buy, sell, ask, right? And then you can use it in various different ways, but one simple way is just to have a visual reference of the words that I know, so that if I'm practicing with someone, I can kind of, what can I say if I limited vocabulary? Oh, well, I have this. I can string together this and this and make a story. What do you actually want to do with this language? So to give an example of the student, not too long ago, he was in Mexico and he had some kind of, infestation of some kind of insect or whatever. And so he had to call the exterminator, right? So I'm like, cool. So you're going to have an experience where an exterminator comes to your house. What's going to happen? What would you, if it was America, what kind of interaction would you have with him? You'd explain to him this, right? So we had the spreadsheet up and I had him talking in English and he's like, oh, I'd ask him this. And then I'm putting in these vocabulary words in the respective columns of characters, actions, settings, like exterminator, roach, whatever, like all that kind of stuff. And you keep talking, you populate it, and then it's like, cool, which of these words do you know, which ones you don't? And then you're like, okay, I don't know this one, so let's look them up. All right, great. Now practice role play and do that scene using these words. So the idea is you think, either you think ahead of time, what am I going to need to accomplish what I think I need to accomplish? But perhaps even better is you go and you actually live the experience, and then you didn't have something. You're like, oh, I wish I had the word for Airbnb. I wish I had the word for this, right? So coming off of that experience and reflecting back on it, then you say, okay, I needed these words. So the key idea here is relevance. And it's like, what's relevant can only be relevant personally to you. So one of the things I try to cultivate in people is to cultivate a sensibility of relevance. So I'm listening to someone speaking, let's say I'm intermediary level, someone speaking, I'm only catching 50% of the things he's saying. And there's these words that I'm hearing, but I don't know what they mean. But if you pay attention, there's a hierarchy where, I don't know that word, I don't know that word, I don't know that word. I don't know that word, but I feel like I know that word because I've heard it 100 times before in different contexts. Like it's ready to come out the oven, So that's the word I'm going to interrupt the guy and say, hey, what does that word mean? But I'm not going to interrupt him on every other word because that would be way too, interruptive. So
cuts the communication.
Exactly. So there's a sensibility there that I try to get people to cultivate of knowing when you should select something to be like, oh, I'm ready to learn what this word is right now. So, in general, I'm trying to cultivate people to be more active and more autonomous in their learning because we've cultivated this very, very passive culture of learning where it's like, teach me, tell me what I need to know. But that's not how it works. You got to grab it. You got to seize it.
Are you enjoying the interview with Adauza? I love interviewing the best experts to bring you insights to help you improve your English and your life. So who else would you like me to interview? Please take a moment to pause the video and let me know in the comments down below. We will check them out and do our best to get them on the show. Thanks. Where does the grammar come in for you? So if you're learning like a language that has a very different sentence structure, for example, from English, then how would you kind of learn that grammar so that you're actually putting these sentences together in a way that is intelligible for someone that you're speaking to?
So I'll take that last sentence you just said, which is how do you structure these words together in a way that's intelligible? And to demonstrate, I can say, me, you, talk, Riverside, video chat platform now. You, podcast have. I, guests be. Let us talk now fast, right? And it was not grammatical, but it was intelligible. And the reason why it was intelligible, it was because the way comprehension works is purely contextual. It's mostly contextual, which is to say, as long as the right characters and actions and settings are co-occurring at the same time, then your mind can construct a scene in your head, right? Like kitchen, mouse, cat, chase, right? Now, in your mind, there's not a mouse chasing a cat, probably, right? Because that's not how the world works. So this is how comprehension works. So why am I telling you all this? Because in my program, it's very counter-conventional. There's a progression we follow. There's kind of 4 features to fluency and sufficiency. So the way I was speaking just now was sufficient to convey the meaning to you, right? Smoothness. Am I stuttering? Am I saying and ah? Are the words disjointed? Speed. Am I taking forever and slowing it down, the flow of the conversation? And then finally, similarity, right? So I don't talk about grammar and all that kind of stuff in the way people in an academic kind of way think about it. I don't believe in grammar. I don't believe I'm trying to speak as similar as I can to the Brazilian. When I'm speaking to the Portuguese person, I want to be similar to them. And they may have different grammatical patterns, for example. So anyways, all I have to say, the ideal is that I'm moving my body and sounding and conveying meaning exactly how this other person is in their form. But there's a sequence for me to get there. So first, I practice that skill you mentioned before, which is, okay, I have vocabulary. How can I just be resourceful and put them on the table to convey my point sufficiently? Once I have the basis of sufficiency, then I can move into refining my grammar, so to speak, so that I sound more similar. So I'm like, me, you, interview talk, and you're like, yes, you and I are speaking on an interview. And if I can mimic you, I'm like, then next time I say it, I can say it that way. I can discard the kind of more rudimentary way of speaking. But if I didn't have that rudimentary thing as a scaffolding, when you say you and I are speaking, I'm like, what? It's just too complicated. So what happens in my experience is people try to be grammatical prematurely. And as a result, they sacrifice sufficiency. Like I said, what's that phrase? Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So they're letting, grammatical similitude be the enemy of just sufficient, fast, and smooth communication. So that it creates an analysis paralysis and all kinds of psychological things. So that's what it is. Grammar, ideally, is not even studied. It's just kind of imbibed because your ears and your eyes are open to the environment and you're just mimicking all the time.
So I highly recommend that you check out the full interview with Adauza and try out his free Mimic Method course for English. Both are linked down in the description below. And as I mentioned before, the most important thing is not that you have an American or British accent. Rather that you speak clearly so that people can understand you. One of my recent guests, Lindsay from All Ears English, puts it perfectly when she says, connection, not perfection. Let's check out a clip from that interview.
Start to change your focus away from the perfection towards the connection, right? Find that moment that motivates you where you did have a connection, you asked someone a question, you learned something about them, and then use that as your starting point to say, I want more of that and less of the getting stuck in your, at your desk and worrying about grammar and feeling like you're doing things wrong. Focus on that. We can choose what to focus on in any moment. So focus on that. That's my ask.